Exactly who are your characters and how can you crack them? To answer those questions, let's take a look at the triumphs, traumas, and lies that shape them. Then you'll have everything you need to start planning your novel. Characters put your story in motion. They clash, they cause complications, and they solve problems. Solving problems forces them to become more than who they were when the story began, creating the all important character arc, the transformation that readers love to see. Characters really are the heart of the story, but do you know yours well enough to put them to work? Think about a few people you're close to. Now, throw them together in a crisis situation, say a train wreck or maybe a fire. Picture how each one will react to the situation, to the other people around them. You likely don't have to think too hard about that because you've seen them in action before. You know who they are, and you can anticipate their behavior. Who we are on the inside shapes how we behave on the outside. The same is true for your story characters. When you know who they really are, it's easier to predict how they'll behave in any story situation you throw their way, and you'll have some great ideas for story action. Unfortunately, you don't have a lifetime to get to know the characters in your story as well as you know the characters in your life. So let's take a shortcut that begins with a little basic psychology. People are shaped by past experiences. Good or bad, they form neural pathways that influence thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. The stronger the attached emotion, the deeper the pathways. Over time, these pathways become entrenched in the subconscious mind and they create unconscious attitudes and reactions. Basically, they program habitual behavior, which shapes up around 95% of what we do. So, 95% of what we do is based on habits. We react to situations without thinking rather than thoughtfully evaluating and responding. It's human nature. So, what habitual or reactionary thinking shapes your characters? That's where triumphs, traumas, and lies come in. Generally speaking, triumphs reveal strengths and what characters willingly do. Traumas reveal weaknesses and whatever it is that holds them back. But both triumphs and traumas can trigger internalized lies, which drive inner conflict and avoidance. Triumphs may impose pressure to sustain success, while traumas can breed fear of repeated harm. Growth occurs when characters are forced to confront these misconceptions and learn a deeper truth about themselves. When you study your characters' triumphs and traumas, you'll get a grasp on their strengths and weaknesses, their inner fears, and the lies they tell themselves. Then you'll know how to push their buttons. You can shove them to the brink, force them to transform, and keep readers glued to your pages. Let's see how this works with an example of a triumph. Say a kid receives accolades for winning multiple awards in school. They could develop a healthy sense of confidence and feel empowered to try new things, which is an obvious strength that you can make good use of in your story. On the other hand, those early triumphs could stir false beliefs. Your character might think they're invincible, or they could begin to believe they're only as good as their latest accomplishment. Those lies can lead to different behaviors. One who believes they're invincible might not recognize their own limitations or when it's time to quit. Or they might think they're smarter than everyone else and refuse to work with anyone else. The one who believes they're only as good as their accomplishments is afraid of failure, which might lead them to become a workaholic, or they might slack off, believing it's better to give up than to try and fail. Just think about all the story possibilities surrounding these examples. Now let's flip to a trauma. Bullying could ignite courage and assertiveness or advocacy for others, but it can also lead to a feeling of unworthiness or a sense that they must be aggressive to survive. Someone who feels unworthy of respectful treatment might appease the bully by agreeing with him or joining forces, or they might withdraw altogether just to avoid confrontation. If they believe aggression rules, they may learn to fight back or even become bullies themselves. See the connection between these experiences and characters' beliefs? See how fear plays a role? Every potential triumph and trauma has countless variations. It's up to you to choose the ones that create a believable pattern of strengths and weaknesses in your characters. When you discover the events that shape them and understand the consequences, you'll know who they are what they want, and what they need to learn. You'll instinctively know how they'll react in a train wreck or a fire, or whatever story situation you throw at them. So take some time to explore your character's backstory. Search for the best thing and worst thing each of them has endured, their greatest triumph and deepest trauma. How do these experiences shape them? What kinds of personality traits and reactionary behavior resulted? Think about Harry Potter. Harry triumphs in a few ways. He survives Voldemort's curse, forms deep friendships, and defeats dark forces. These things empower him with resilience, courage, and a sense of purpose. But he suffers trauma too. The loss of his parents, abuse by the Dursleys, and other loved ones dying all around him reinforces fear of abandonment, survivor's guilt, and a deep sense of responsibility for protecting others. They also trigger the lies Harry tells himself. His traumas lead him to believe he's alone. He must face challenges alone, and he is to blame for the suffering around him. The triumph of surviving Voldemort's curse leads Harry to believe his worth is tied to being the boy who lived, not just who he is. Ultimately, Harry becomes a compassionate, determined leader who learns to trust others, embrace his own humanity, and wield the power of love to overcome darkness. So, how will your characters grow? They probably don't know what they need to learn, but it's usually based on what their deepest trauma took from them. And it may be reflected in what they think they want and the limited beliefs or lies they tell themselves. For example, your protagonist may want to move away from home to escape their past, but what they really need is to come to terms with that past so they can move forward. Harry Potter wants to uncover the truth about his parents, defeat Voldemort, and protect the people he loves. He values transparency and views Snape as an antagonist who consistently gets in his way. On the other hand, Snape is motivated by a secret mission to protect Harry out of love for Harry's mother, while acting as a double agent for Voldemort. His covert work often makes him appear harsh and antagonistic. These misalignments create all kinds of delicious story tension. Now, let's switch things up a little. To deepen your understanding of this concept, take a look at your own triumphs, traumas, and lies. This is not necessarily easy, and it isn't quick. But what are your best and worst experiences? What do you believe because of them, and how have they impacted you? If you haven't spent any time thinking about this before, consider how you behave in common scenarios that spark repeat behaviors and attitudes. For example, you may notice how at ease you are in some types of situations while others put you on edge. Do you know why? Instinctively, we look at the surface level. We blame some external value for making us feel good or bad or causing us to behave a certain way. It's the fault of someone or something else. But really, the root cause of our reactions is not something external. It's the deep-seated subconscious memory of a previous experience that sets us up to think and react in a certain repetitive way. So dig around a little. Why do you feel so good when you host people? Were you praised for your ability to make others feel at ease, or maybe for your cooking skills? On the other hand, why do you feel so tense when your best friend goes off on an optimism rant? If you were victimized in any way or suffered repeated failures, optimism might make you feel angry or mistrustful. It takes time to become fully aware of the subconscious motivations behind our own behavior and emotions, and sometimes a therapist is warranted. If that's the case, consider it an investment in a well-balanced life and your writing practice. Your mind is worth exploring. The more aware you become of your own internal programming, the better you'll understand the triumphs, traumas, and lies shaping other people's behavior, including your story characters. So this week, play with the possibilities of each of your characters. Look as deeply as possible. You'll likely discover more than you'll ever have to share on the page, but that depth of knowledge impacts the way you write about them. You'll have more to draw from. You can anticipate their reactions in any given story situation while deepening the realism of their adventure. Bring your character discoveries along for episode 4. We'll use what you learn from their triumphs, traumas, and lies to look at a simple way to shape your plot, one that won't break your brain or your creative spirit. Thank you so much for joining me today. Your characters await. So pick up your pen and write, writer, write.